and welcome to Business 360. I'm Ritu Singh and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. Monetary Policy Committee keeps rates unchanged for the 7th consecutive time, sticks to 7% GDP growth projection for this fiscal. RBI Governor says inflation, the elephant in the room, has now gone for a walk. Adds the central bank will remain nimble on liquidity management.
Financial sector players, by and large, operate with public money. They should always be mindful of this aspect.
RBI Governor calls on banks and other regulated entities to give highest priority to governance. The Star message follows strict action by the regulator in the recent past on those flouting the rules. Sensex and Nifty end flat after RBI status quo policy. Both the indices gain 1% for the week. Mid-cap index gains 4%, marking the biggest weekly gain in 7 months. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen meets Chinese government officials and business leaders, calls on China to address concerns surrounding overcapacity and encourages market-oriented reforms. The Supreme Court transfers to itself 27 pleas challenging the 28% GST imposition on real money gaming. These pleas are pending across 9 high courts. The CGI said that it would be better for the Supreme Court to hear the case and deliver the authoritative ruling. The court is likely to hear the batch of pleas on the 1st of May. Congress unveils its election manifesto 2 weeks ahead of the Lok Sabha polls, promises a nationwide caste census, daily wage of 400 rupees for Manrega workers and stable personal tax rates. Jammu and Kashmir's statehood restoration, legal MSP guarantee and a law allowing civil unions for couples from the LGBTQIA community is also mentioned in the manifesto. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh tells Network 18 that India wants to maintain cordial relations with its neighbour, but anyone trying to foment terrorism on Indian soil will not be spared. Adds that soon the police will take care of law and order in Jammu and Kashmir and the troops will be withdrawn gradually. The United Nations Human Rights Council adopts a resolution calling for Israel to be held accountable for war crimes in Gaza. Israel promises new steps to increase humanitarian aid after a warning from U.S. President Joe Biden. More than 33,000 Palestinians have been killed so far, according to the Hamas-run Health Ministry. Global hospitality major Hyatt is bullish on India. CEO Mark Hoplamazian sees more room for growth as India is under-hotelled. Also adds that demand has outpaced supply globally, making prices favorable for the company. That's an exclusive. Our top story this evening, a business as usual monetary policy, no changes in rates or stance for the 7th consecutive time. Though the governor noted that since the previous meeting, both growth and inflation outcomes have been favorable, the statement continued to be hawkish, broadly similar to what we saw last time. On inflation, the CPI forecast for FY25 was left unchanged at 4.5% with downward revisions for the first, second and fourth quarters. The governor also said that the MPC's focus very much remains on navigating that last mile of disinflation. Risks, especially from above normal temperatures, food price volatility and increasing commodity prices, he warned, could derail the path of disinflation. The Monetary Policy Report, which is released twice a year, said that the average CPI inflation in FY26 could be seen at 4.1%. On the growth front, however, GDP growth forecast again for FY25 was left unchanged at 7%, contrary to market expectations of an upward revision. Now, as per the Monetary Policy Report, assuming a normal monsoon and no major shocks, real GDP growth is seen at 7% for FY26, with quarterly growth rates in the range of 6.7 to 7.4%. Now, with these kind of growth projections, the MPC does not really see any urgency to cut rates. The governor, in fact, saying that the outlook for growth allows space for RBI to unwaveringly focus on price stability. Now, while the RBI does not give any forward guidance, markets are penciling in a rate cut only by August or even later by October. The governor also stressed that RBI will continue to take nimble and flexible steps on the liquidity front. A quick word on the non-policy measures as well, where RBI has decided to permit eligible foreign investors in the IFSC to invest in sovereign green bonds, introduce a mobile application for RBI Retail Direct Scheme. RBI also said it is going to review the liquidity coverage ratio framework for banks, considering the volatility in deposits because of the 24/7 money transfer facility. Now, apart from these, RBI proposed to permit linking prepaid payment instruments like your wallets through third-party UPI applications, which will enable these wallet holders to make UPI payments like any other bank account holder. Apart from these, of course, during the press conference, lots of questions around what's happening around the exchange-traded currency derivative rules, and the RBI officials reiterating that their stance on the matter remains unchanged. Also, again, reiterating the need for strong governance. Here are some of the highlights from that press conference.
The headwinds from protracted geopolitical tensions and increasing disruptions in trade routes, however, pose risks to the overall outlook. Taking all these factors into consideration, the real GDP growth for the current financial year 2024-25, which started on 1st April, the real GDP growth for 24-25 is projected at 7%, with Q1 at 7.1%, Q2 at 6.9%, and both Q3 and Q4 at 7% each. Now, 2 years ago, around this time, when CPI inflation had peaked at 7.8% in April 2022, the elephant in the room was inflation. The elephant has now gone out for a walk and appears to be returning to the forest. We would like the elephant to return to the forest and remain there on a durable basis. In other words, it is essential in the best interest of the economy that CPI inflation continues to moderate and aligns to the target on a durable basis. Till this is achieved, our task remains unfinished. Banks, NBFCs, and other financial entities must continue to give highest priority to quality of governance and adherence to regulatory guidelines. The Reserve Bank has also been engaging with the regulated entities and various stakeholders for simplifying its regulations and reducing compliance burden. As part of this endeavor, the recommendations of the Regulations Review Authority (RRA 2.0) constituted by the Reserve Bank have been largely implemented.
Okay, so that's as far as the policy is concerned. Now, how did the markets react? The Sensex and the Nifty ended the day flat after the status quo policy, but bank stocks and mid-cap saw a healthy gain. The mid-cap index clocked the 10th straight day of gains, and for the week, the mid-cap index is up 4%, marking the biggest weekly gain in 7 months. The Sensex and Nifty are up 1% in this week. Now, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has flagged China's industrial overcapacity, citing that there are growing concerns over the global economic fallout. Speaking at an American Chamber of Commerce event in China, Yellen highlighted that China is too large to export its way to rapid growth and would benefit by reducing excess industrial capacity, which is pressuring other economies.
Overcapacity isn't a new problem, but it is intensified. And we're seeing emerging risks in new sectors. Direct and indirect government support is currently leading to production capacity that significantly exceeds China's domestic demand. China is too large to export its way to rapid growth. And if policies are oriented only at generating supply and not also at generating demand, global spillovers will result.
Okay, and here's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive then. Hyatt has more room for growth in India as the country is under-hoteled. That is the word coming in from global hospitality major CEO Mark Hoplamazian, who's speaking to CNBC-TV18, said that Hyatt will open 50 new hotels in India in the next few years. He added that the hospitality company will also continue to open more new hotels globally as demand has outpaced supply in the leisure segment.
We have 50 hotels open. We have 50 hotels in the pipeline here in India. And so we will have an even broader platform of those 50 hotels that we are opening, not all of which are being opened in 2024, by the way. These will open over the next several years. we're entering into 28 new markets in India, and that's really notable. If you ask me a decade from now, I would say India will be many-fold the size that we have today. And if you ask me what it would look like in 30 or 40 years, I think it really could easily be the second largest market we have in the company. Globally, what we're seeing is a continued increase in demand, especially leisure. Leisure demand has been the strongest segment by far since COVID came to an end. The demand level has been high, and supply has been actually relatively lower because not as many hotels got built over the last 5 years as you might see in a normal time. So the dynamics, therefore, are favorable to pricing for the hotel business and also increased levels of occupancy over time.
All right, in other news, Pi Platforms, backed by Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma, has launched a shopping app on the Open Network for Digital Commerce, or ONDC. According to Money Control, Paytm does not own any shares in Pi Platforms. However, the Pi shopping application has been developed by the fintech major's parent entity, that is 197 Communications. This after Paytm e-commerce rebranded itself as Pi Platforms last month. The Supreme Court has transferred to itself 27 pleas challenging the 28% GST imposition on real money gaming. These pleas have been pending across 9 high courts, and the CGI said that it would be better for the Supreme Court to hear the case and deliver the authoritative ruling. The court is also likely to hear the batch of pleas on the 1st of May. In other news, the global slowdown in EV demand has prompted Ford to revise its production plans. The auto major has delayed the planned launches of 3 Row EVs in Canada and its next-generation electric pickup truck built in Tennessee. The company has also announced that it is boosting its hybrid electric vehicle offerings by 2030. The company is aiming to offer hybrid powertrains across its gas-powered vehicle lineup. And Apple has laid off more than 600 employees in February in 8 different facilities in the U.S., according to filings with the California Employment Development Department. The layoffs come after the tech major scrapped its autonomous EV car project, as well as efforts to manufacture next-generation display screens. Apple has declined to comment on the number of employees affected by the job cuts. Microsoft has warned that China will attempt to disrupt elections in the US, India, and South Korea with AI-generated content. Now, in a report, the tech giant has cautioned that Chinese state bank cyber groups may target these high-profile elections, with North Korea also involved. The company has also claimed that China did a test run in Taiwan using AI-generated content to sway voters away from a pro-sovereignty candidate. The United Nations Human Rights Council has adopted a resolution calling for Israel to be held accountable for war crimes in Gaza. The council has also demanded a halt to all arms sales to Israel, citing warnings of genocide in its war on Gaza. Meanwhile, reports have said that Israeli forces fired tear gas at worshippers who were protesting against the war at Al-Aqsa Mosque. More than 33,000 Palestinians have been killed so far, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. Meanwhile, Israel has promised to take new steps to increase humanitarian aid in Gaza. This comes after US President Joe Biden issued a stern warning to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to protect civilians and workers in the region. In a phone conversation, Biden gave Netanyahu an ultimatum, citing, if Israel doesn't comply, then Biden administration is going to stop providing aid to Israel in its fight with Hamas.
Despite important steps that Israel has taken to allow assistance into Gaza, the results on the ground are woefully insufficient and unacceptable. President Biden spoke a short while ago with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He underscored as well that an immediate ceasefire is essential to stabilize and improve the humanitarian situation and protect innocent civilians, and he urged Prime Minister Netanyahu to empower his negotiators to conclude a deal without delay.
Okay, on that note, it's time for us to take a short break. But up next, the Congress has unveiled its election manifesto 2 weeks ahead of the Lok Sabha polls. My colleague Parikshit Luthra joins us on the other side with some special guests. Stay tuned.